Hello and welcome. This is Cheryl. Thank you so much for joining me today. Today we are on day 11 of the Spellbinders Crafty Advent Calendar. If you haven't been following along, I have a whole playlist. I'm going to do one video every single day for the first 24 days of September, opening up the window and creating something with it. So today on day 11, we have a embossing folder. So it's a slim embossing folder. It's about 2 inches wide, maybe 1.5 inches wide. So it's not going to cover an entire card background, but it's a fun way to add some embossed elements to your cards. Now you can use this just as is and just create the texture. I'm going to do something a little tiny bit different. We're going to add a little bit of ink to it and really enhance that image. Now, normally I would use a piece of cardstock that's 4 1/4 by 5 1/2 and then trim it down. I'd already trimmed this one down to 3 3/4 by 5 1/2, so I don't have the room to add tape to the side of my cardstock. So I'm just using some temporary tape on the back of it to hold it in place while I'm doing this. Both ways work. It is handy to have a little bit larger cardstock and then be able to trim it exactly how you want. I had already done it ahead of time. So by using the removable adhesive, it works just as well. Mine's very, very old though, so you may have noticed that it kind of ripped the back of the cardstock a little bit. No big deal, it's going to be all hidden. So I'm just using some black Memento ink. You could use whatever color you want. I'm doing the vase and the flower from day 8, the die set, and I wanted to have just a really nice graphic background for that. I'm doing the vase and the flower in some nice bright color, so I thought the black and white embossed background would be a little bit interesting. So when you're using ink on an embossing folder, I like to use dye ink because it cleans off really, really nicely. However, it also kind of resists the plastic from the embossing folder. So I find that you have to do it a few times. Typically 3 is the sweet spot. And then as I was taking it out of the embossing folder, I got a fingerprint on that piece of cardstock. So rather than doing it all over again, I decided to get a little bit creative, just change up my design just a tiny little bit, and I trimmed that piece down. It's going to look exactly the same. The only difference is the entire front of my card isn't going to be one piece of cardstock. It's going to be 2 pieces. Not a big deal. So I'm going to do a yellow mat here because I'm doing yellow flowers and a yellow sentiment banner. I've already got them cut from behind there. And because my piece here is going to be glued right on top, you're never going to know those pieces were cut out of there. It's just one of the ways that I like to make my cardstock go a little bit further. And I've been doing this for years and no one ever notices it until you tell them. So again, one way to make or to extend your cardstock. Now, because I had to cut that strip, I figured I might as well add a little bit of a white strip on that left side, or leave a bit of a white strip on that left side. Might as well utilize changing up the design just a little bit to my advantage. So before I start adding my flower to the front of the card, I'm just going to assemble it. This one looks a little bit like a daffodil, so it's got kind of a cup looking center to it. So I glued those together. There's a few pieces that make up that center, and then I just glued it onto the flower background. There's a few different stems to choose from in this set. I chose the long one. I wanted to have just one single flower, but you could easily add a cluster and have a bunch of flowers if you wanted to. These pieces are all cut out of Spellbinders cardstock. That yellow is Beeswax, the lime green is Peridot, and then the vase is Teal Topaz cardstock, and then there's obviously white cardstock for the background. I also did my sentiment with that yellow cardstock, and I chose the die set from day 4. There is several different ones to choose from. I just chose the happy birthday one, but you could also do the hello friend or thanks so much, just depending on what theme you want your card to be. Any one of those sentiments would work with this though. And then for a little bit of sparkle, I'm going to add the sequins from day 9. They work really, really well with this yellow cardstock, and they have a little bit of an iridescent shine to them. So it also complements the other colors in this design as well. Typically when I'm doing gems or sequins, I like to do odd numbers, and I like to use a few different sizes. This sequins blend seems to have 2 different sizes to it, and I'm going to use a jewel picker to pick up that sequins, then add just a dot of glue from my glue bottle, and then place that gem in place. Now it's a little bit more challenging when you're using both your right and your left hand. You definitely don't have to do it this way. You could just put a dot of glue and then use the jewel picker to pick up the sequins. I was just trying to be more efficient, and it ended up being a little bit more challenging. So here is the final card, and you could see how easily and how quickly that went together, but that embossed strip there adds so much impact, and it's just a really kind of cool background for it. Thank you so much for joining me today. I really appreciate the time you spend with me, and I'm going to see you tomorrow for day 12.